Before we go any further, viewer discretion is strongly advised. Everything you're about to hear is based entirely on federal courtroom testimony from the Diddy Combs trial, as reported by Inner City Press. No cameras, no live streams, just raw words. And what happened behind those closed courtroom doors? It shook the industry to its core. Jamie Foxx, yeah, that Jamie, walked into court. But what happened once he took the stand? Nobody was ready for that. The room went still, the kind of silence that hits right before a storm. This wasn't the Jamie we're used to, not the smooth talker, not the joke-cracking Oscar winner. This was a man who looked like he'd been carrying something for way too long. His hands were shaking, his voice barely held together, and then he just lost it. Crying, screaming, breaking in front of a jury that could only sit frozen. According to leaks from inside the courtroom, the transcript notes, sketch artist renderings, everything pointed to the same thing. This was not a performance. Jamie wasn't acting, he was haunted. What he described that day wasn't just a party gone wrong. It was a system, an experience so disturbing, it changed how he saw everything. Himself, the industry, Diddy, and the most terrifying part? The way it was all hidden in plain sight. How everything had been wrapped up in luxury, celebrity, and brotherhood. But behind those velvet ropes, something way darker. He started off calm, even nostalgic. We all wanted to be part of the circle. Jamie told the court, Diddy's house wasn't just a mansion. It was the place where the deals happened, the music lived, the energy buzzed. It felt like royalty, but he didn't realize some parties weren't about celebration, they were initiation. That night, he accepted an invite to stay at Diddy's estate, thought it was just another night of hanging out, a little champagne, maybe some networking, but what he walked into was something else. Jamie said after hours of drinking and relaxing, he was led into a private part of the mansion, somewhere he'd never been before. There were people I didn't recognize, he said. Not artists, not producers, just strangers, and they didn't look like they were there for fun. Then his voice dropped to a whisper. They told me to stay, to relax. Diddy had a surprise. From there, it all shifted. The lighting changed, the vibe changed, laughter stopped. People began splitting off into rooms. Jamie was escorted to a private theater room. A screen was already queued up. He had no idea what was about to play. They told me, this is where we bond. What played next? Jamie said he's tried to erase it from his mind every day since. I didn't know if it was real or fake, staged or not. But what I felt, my stomach dropped. I wanted to leave. I got up, but the doors were locked. They told him, watch. Told him, everyone who's somebody has seen this. He didn't say what exactly was in the video, but whatever it was, it shattered something in him. He paused, then said softly, I never asked to see that, and I've spent every day since trying to forget it. The judge had to call a 5-minute recess so Jamie could gather himself. And when he came back, his eyes were bloodshot, his hands still shaking, but he kept going. And what he said next shifted the entire energy in the room. When I tried to leave, Jamie said, they handed me a drink, said it'd calm me down. I didn't drink it, I just wanted out. He said Diddy looked him straight in the eyes, not with concern, not with apology, but with cold detachment. Like he knew exactly what Jamie saw and didn't care. Like this was all part of the plan, but it didn't end there. Jamie said the real trauma came after he left the house. That's when the calls started. Not threats exactly, just reminders. Stay close, stay quiet. And then came the deal. An NDA wrapped in a check, 7 figures. Jamie refused. And that's when the freeze-out started. Roles dried up. Producers stopped answering his calls. Projects suddenly went on hold. He called it a quiet erasure. Not loud, not violent, but very real. I watched people disappear, he said. Not dead, just gone, scrubbed out, careers ended, conversations stopped. Then came the shocker. He wasn't the only one. Other people talked to me over the years, he said. People you know, people you love. They went through the same thing. You think I'm brave for being here? I'm not, I'm just tired. And with that, Jamie Foxx, a man known for making the world laugh, made an entire courtroom cry. After the courtroom settled down, Jamie Foxx returned to the stand. His voice was still shaky, but his tone had changed. Less emotional, more focused, like someone who had decided enough was enough. He said what happened that night didn't stop at the theater room. No, that was just the beginning. Because what he discovered later wasn't just some disturbing video, it was a whole operation, carefully hidden, built to keep people quiet, and built on fear. Jamie said, "What I saw, what I learned after, it wasn't just a crazy night. It was systematic, controlled, a setup." He started breaking down what insiders had told him, not just random rumors, but people who had worked inside Diddy's home, a former house manager, 2 security guards, both of whom, Jamie said, have since completely disappeared from the public eye. All of them told him the same thing. There's a hidden room inside Diddy's mansion, a digital vault, a command center full of screens, locked drawers, surveillance footage, and only a select few had access. They kept everything, Jamie said. Not just party clips, not just fun stuff. This was surveillance, hidden cameras, bathrooms, bedrooms, hallways. People had no idea they were being filmed. The courtroom was still. Jamie took a deep breath before continuing. They didn't just film for fun. They filmed for power. It was a currency. If you were ever in that house, they had you. Even if you didn't do anything wrong, they had your face, your reactions, you walking around unaware. Then came the moment that made the jury physically lean forward. Jamie said a few months after that night, a package showed up at his production office. No name, no return address, just his name written in thick black marker. Inside was a flash drive, and on that flash drive, footage, grainy video of Jamie himself sitting in that theater room, caught on camera, watching whatever had been playing that night. No audio, just his face, shocked, disoriented, trapped. Then the screen went black. One phrase appeared, "Just remember." Jamie told the jury, "I sat there staring at that screen for over an hour. I didn't sleep that night. I knew exactly what it meant. We see you. We own your silence." After that, he shut down. He stopped talking about it because suddenly he didn't know who to trust. Every time I saw another celebrity suddenly vanish from the spotlight or back away from an allegation, I wondered, were they filmed too? Then he dropped the real bomb. Jamie said those tapes, the secret footage, had been used repeatedly to shut people up. Quiet lawsuits, end rumors, force endorsements. Get public support from people who behind the scenes wanted nothing to do with Diddy. Some of the people defending him publicly, he said, they're not defending him because they want to. They're doing it because they have to. Because they're scared. Because that footage is their leash. And then, almost in a whisper, he told the jury about the late-night phone call. A well-known actress, a woman everyone knows, someone America sees as sweet, innocent, respected. She called him crying, said she got sent a video of herself, passed out in one of those rooms. Someone was hovering over her, a man. She didn't recognize him, didn't know if anything had happened, didn't know who had that footage. And Jamie, he didn't know what to say. She was broken, he told the court, and I couldn't help her. At this point, the judge had to call another recess. Jamie was breaking again, but before he stepped away, he gave the jury one last sentence. Quiet, cold, unforgettable. They don't just collect secrets, he said. They manufacture silence. They build a cage out of your worst moments, and then they hold the key. After the second recess, Jamie returned to the stand, quieter now, but sharper. The emotion was still there, but it had hardened into something colder. This was no longer just a confession, it was a warning. He looked out at the jury and began explaining what he called the mechanics of the mansion. And this is where everything started to feel less like a party and more like a setup. Jamie described being led into rooms that didn't appear on the official blueprints, back corridors, locked staircases. He remembered being shown a hallway behind, a bookcase, straight out of a movie, which opened up to what he called a surveillance control room. Inside, 2 men sat silently, staring at screens, dozens of them, cameras from all over the estate. Bedrooms, private spas, lounges. I didn't ask to see anything, Jamie said, but they wanted me to know. They were watching everything. He asked one of the men who had access to those recordings. Only him, the guy answered. meaning Diddy. Jamie was then shown to his guest room, but something about it felt off. It was beautiful, opulent even, but cold. No windows, obvious cameras in the corners. I didn't feel like a guest, Jamie said. I felt like I was under interrogation. He tried to sleep. Couldn't. Around 2 a.m. he heard music. Faint, eerie. He stepped into the hallway and saw something that didn't make sense. A line of people in robes, walking silently toward the theater room. Some were blindfolded. Some were being filmed. At the center, Diddy, smiling, guiding the whole thing, and around them, handlers, men in plain clothes, whispering into ears, keeping the flow moving. Jamie said they weren't part of the party. They were there to document, to collect, to control. They weren't just filming for fun, he said. They were documenting behavior, for leverage. Jamie didn't stay long. He slipped back to his room. But when he walked in, the door was already cracked open. Everything inside was untouched, except for one thing. On the nightstand, a photo, a picture of him and Diddy, taken years earlier, and it hadn't been there before. On the back, a handwritten note, Brotherhood. Jamie's voice cracked as he explained what came next. Months after that night, he got a visit from the FBI. An agent reached out, off the record. Jamie didn't name him, but he said the man had been investigating Diddy for years. According to the agent, there were over 30 sealed complaints involving misconduct, trafficking, extortion, all linked to Diddy and his inner circle. But none had made it past grand juries. He's protected, the agent reportedly told him, at levels you wouldn't believe. That's when Jamie dropped the biggest bombshell of his testimony. The agent allegedly said there were sealed documents, ones implicating a former US president, not just in donations or events, but in attending one of Diddy's most exclusive fundraisers. One of the nights where surveillance footage was allegedly recorded, Jamie was quick to clarify. He didn't know if anything illegal happened. But the moment he heard that, everything clicked. Why so many people were scared, why this case felt like chasing shadows, why no one talked. Then came the confrontation. Jamie said he was leaving a restaurant in LA when two men approached him. Dressed like private security, one handed him a phone and stepped back. On the other end, Diddy. His voice was calm, too calm. "I hope you're not planning on saying anything you'll regret, my man," Diddy reportedly said. "That's the kind of thing that can mess up legacies. You're a legend, Jamie. Don't lose that over something that isn't your business." Jamie said it wasn't the words that shook him. It was what they implied, that Diddy knew exactly where he was, that he could reach him anytime, anywhere. After that call, Jamie's life changed. He got new phones, cancelled public appearances, hired private security, and not long after, a tabloid story dropped, claiming Jamie was involved in a scandal, one he says was 100% fake. It was a warning shot, he said. It was him telling me, "We can build a lie around you just as fast as we can destroy you with the truth." He told the jury that Diddy's power wasn't just in money or fame. It was in fear, surveillance, silence. Jamie then talked about how every guest at Diddy's parties was forced to hand over their phone. Privacy, they claimed. But Jamie believed the truth was darker. He said insiders told him the phones were cloned, contacts, messages, voicemails, all copied, all stored. "People think the danger was in what they did at those parties," Jamie said. "But the real danger was in what they took from you. Your data, your voice, your fear." A prosecutor then submitted a stack of NDAs signed by Diddy's guests, most of them celebrities. The language? Not normal. These weren't just confidentiality agreements, they were gag orders. Threats in legal disguise. Jamie said he was asked to sign one too. He refused, and after that, the phone stopped ringing. Studios ghosted him. A film he'd been developing suddenly dropped. Endorsements pulled. It was like I became radioactive. "Overnight," Jamie said. "Not because I did something wrong, but because I didn't play along." And the deeper he went, the more he realized this wasn't just about one night. This was a machine. By the time Jamie got into this part of his testimony, the courtroom felt different. He wasn't just telling a story anymore. He was exposing a system. And with each sentence, it got darker. He described one of the most disturbing nights during his stay at Diddy's mansion, a night he called the blackout. It was around 2 a.m. Everything had been normal up until that point. Music playing, laughter in the distance, people still moving through the hallways. Then, without warning, the entire estate went dark. Not just lights out, Jamie said the music cut. The hallway lights blinked twice, then silence, complete, eerie silence. I thought it was a power outage, he told the court. But the timing was too perfect. It felt staged. He stepped into the hallway, and that's when it hit him. The air was freezing, but not just from the AC, it was a tension, thick and heavy. Nobody was talking, nobody was moving. It was like they'd been through this before. Then a tall man in a suit, someone Jamie had never seen before, walked out of a room and gave a direct order. No phones, no cameras, everyone go back inside. Jamie turned around, acted like he was going back to his room, but curiosity got the best of him. He quietly moved down the hallway toward a room where strange sounds were coming from. Whispers, something metal clanging, then a muffled scream. A male voice, pained. He didn't say exactly what he saw, but made it clear. This wasn't a game. It wasn't a performance. It wasn't consensual. He said he peeked through a cracked door and saw shadows, people standing in a circle, someone being restrained, and in the middle of it all, a woman with a notepad, walking calmly, marking something down. Then she looked up and saw him. She didn't yell, she didn't react. She just looked at Jamie and smiled. Then she walked over and closed the door in his face. That's when he said it hit him. This wasn't a home, this wasn't a party. It was a theater, he said, and we were props. But it didn't end there. Jamie started talking about a part of the mansion that had always been off limits. The upstairs level. Guests were told not to go up there, ever. It was strictly for business. But one night, trying to avoid a crowd in the hallway, Jamie opened the wrong door and suddenly found himself at the foot of a dim staircase. Red emergency lights barely lit the steps, and above he saw two men whispering at the top. One looked directly at him. "You lost?" the man asked. Jamie apologized and turned back, but before he did, he noticed something. A black curtain stretched across the hallway upstairs, with a faint white light blinking behind it. "That's where they keep the good stuff," he joked bitterly. "Not good like fun, good like evidence, secrets, control." Later, a friend who had also been at the party told him, "Upstairs? That's where the real meetings happen, the kind where people give something up to get something," Jamie said. That line stuck with him for years. Back in court, the prosecutor finally asked the question that had been hanging in the air since the beginning. "Why didn't you come forward earlier?" Jamie paused, looked down, took a breath. "I was scared," he said. "Not for my career. Forget that. I was scared for my life, for my family, for anyone close to me." He said Diddy didn't just silence people with lawsuits or threats. He made people disappear, not physically, but from relevance, from protection, from the industry. "Ask anyone who tried," Jamie said. "They don't need to kill you. They just erase you." But then the stories started piling up. Cassie's testimony, the leaked files, the federal investigation, and Jamie realized if he stayed silent, he was part of the problem. If I stayed quiet now, I was complicit, and I couldn't live with that anymore. Then came his closing words. Not rehearsed, not dramatic, just honest. "Everyone thinks Hollywood is built on dreams," he said. "But the truth, it's built on secrets. And this man, he collected more secrets than anyone. I just hope telling mine helps break the spell he had on all of us." The judge called for a recess. Jamie walked back to his seat, and according to reporters, some jurors were wiping away tears. What followed wasn't just silence, it was a reckoning. As the courtroom settled into silence, the weight of everything Jamie had revealed still hung in the air. But there was one more night, one more moment that he hadn't yet shared. And it was the one that stayed with him the most. He called it the final incident. Jamie said after everything and the surveillance, the flash drive, the call from Diddy, he thought he had seen it all. But there was one night that still haunted him in a different way. He was lying awake in that cold, camera-filled guest room when it happened. Around 2 a.m., again, the lights flickered, music stopped, and then everything went dark. This wasn't an outage, it was a signal. Jamie described stepping into the hallway and seeing it again, the same processional of people in robes being led toward the theater room, some blindfolded, some holding drinks, all of them quiet, at the center orchestrating everything. But this time, Jamie followed closer. He stayed in the shadows, out of view, and watched from behind a column as the scene unfolded. What he saw wasn't a party, not even close. It felt like a ritual, Jamie said. Not symbolic, literal. People were being filmed again. But not casually. This was structured, controlled. There were handlers, observers, and in the middle of it all, someone crying. Not out of joy, but fear. Jamie didn't describe everything in graphic detail. But he made it clear, this wasn't about entertainment. It was leverage. The footage taken that night wasn't for memories, it was for manipulation. And just when he was about to slip away, he noticed something new. A door left slightly open. Not the theater, not a guest room. It led to a staircase. He followed it up quietly and entered a room with multiple monitors, a control center. Two men sat there, not looking up. Security types, silent. On the screens, he saw different rooms, some empty, others not. One showed what looked like a private lounge with someone he recognized, a public figure, passed out. Another showed a woman crying alone in a hallway, all time-stamped, all recorded. Jamie asked one of the men, "Who sees these?" The man answered without turning his head, "Only him." That was the moment Jamie said he realized this wasn't paranoia, this was a system. Later that night, Jamie returned to his room. Everything was untouched, but now sitting on the bed was a folded note. No envelope, just one word written in thick ink. "Remember?" That was it, and he did. Back in court, Jamie said it took him months to even speak about what he'd seen. But things didn't stop there. He told the jury that a few weeks later he was visited again, not by Diddy's people, not by media, but by someone claiming to be a former staff member from the mansion. The man wouldn't give his full name, just said he used to work security, and he came with a warning. "It's not just about parties, it's about what they can make you do." Jamie pressed him for details. The man wouldn't give names, but he claimed that several celebrities who had been filmed were later pressured into doing things they never wanted, promoting causes, endorsing people, even taking fall for scandals. "It's how they keep the circle clean," the man said. "They use dirt to control the cleanup." Jamie asked why he was telling him all this. The man looked at him and said, "Because you talked. And once you talk, you're not part of it anymore." Jamie's voice shook when he told the jury, "That's when I knew. Even if I stayed quiet, I was already out, so I might as well say everything." Then came his final bombshell. He said the same FBI agent who had contacted him earlier reached out one last time, this time off the record. The agent told him that federal investigators had uncovered sealed footage, stored off-site, believed to contain recordings of politicians, media figures, and even global celebrities in compromising situations. The footage was linked to multiple lawsuits, all of which had quietly disappeared. But the most shocking part, the agent said the investigation had stalled because of interference, because too many people at the top didn't want it moving forward. "If you speak out," the agent warned, "you're not just going up against a celebrity, you're going up against the infrastructure." Jamie looked around the courtroom one last time. His eyes were glassy, but his voice was steady. "This isn't about taking someone down, it's about dragging the truth into the light." He paused, then added, "I don't care what happens to me after this. I just want it known. I saw it, I lived it, and now I've said it on the record." The judge called for a final recess. Jamie stepped down from the stand. Reporters said the courtroom was silent, not tense, just quiet, as if everyone in the room was still trying to process what they'd just heard. One juror reportedly couldn't stop shaking his head. Another wiped a tear, and for the first time all trial, even the judge sat frozen for a long moment before speaking, because no matter how many secrets were still buried, Jamie Foxx had just unearthed the darkest ones.